So for everybody attending, welcome. I'm very happy you joined us for this first webinar session with our AI partners from Europe. And that includes Alex from Arc53 and Tomasz from Aproco. So these partners, it's been a long road to find them. So Alex represents Docs GPT, basically by now almost like an out-of-the-box software for RAG LLM. If you don't understand what RAG LLM means, don't worry, like we will go into that in a second. And Tomasz has been my good friend from Poland, and they've been supporting us from the very beginning. So for some of you, you may have seen the Knowledge Assistant on No Deviation website. So that's Aproco supporting us, and that's their product. So now we are more like creating a collaborative space to start off and see what we can come up together. So just as explanation why we wanted to host this webinar and why it took a few months to actually build up to this. So everybody has seen the kind of AI explosion, the proliferation of people using it everywhere. And you've probably realized that it's kind of started from the bottom up. So in this case, for pharma, it was quite kind of chaotic, where you could have operators and compliance people, managers, everybody just taking out their phones and chatting away with whatever AI models on the market. And this obviously raised a lot of questions because there was no regulatory frameworks for it. It came as a kind of surprise. And for pharma, this also raised questions because in pharma, when we access knowledge, when we share knowledge, when we give answers, especially technical answers, because it's the health of the patients on the line, we really need to have absolute accuracy, validity, and confidentiality. We cannot really risk using tools which are not fully validated or accurate. So that's where the whole road started. So how do we use this powerful technology, but we regulate it and we do it in such a way that it actually is accurate. So that was a starting point. So down the line, I realized this technology can actually help out a lot in many of the business points for pharma. So I think it really touches very well on the unified knowledge space, which has been a buzz lately, because it can actually attach very well to all the documents, the data. I think no one really knows actually how that will evolve, but everybody agrees that AI will be a part of it. And also, one thing which I think is becoming more and more problematic in the industry is the knowledge drain. So people kind of jump around in the industry. There's also generally less experienced SMEs. So we should really focus on trying to maximize the time they have. And one of the current jobs of most of SMEs is kind of sharing their knowledge, which is good, great, but that actually costs them time. So this is something which the AI could facilitate. Just give the easy or the medium answers and leave the hard ones for the SMEs. And yeah, so in this context, I think the RAG I mentioned earlier, which you may haven't heard about before, it's reverse augmented engineering, comes into play. It's like okay, I will not go into details because actually that's why Alex is here. I think his product, the RAG product they are developing, is like the best on the market, at least as far as I have realized. So I would just leave it up to him to explain what it is, how it works, and why is it such a critical tool for the pharmaceutical industry.
Thank you, Dominic, for introduction. So just to start off on who I'm Alex. I'm from Arc53. I'm a founder. We started it back in January. We're an open source project. I'm very happy to see people try it. And to speak about RAG is basically, you have to imagine a large language model on its own. It was trained on a lot of data before it started working. And for it to speak and chat with you and have a conversation, it was trained on a lot of public internet data, which probably is old, probably is outdated, probably comes from different sources, doesn't have everything, right? And sometimes with models, don't have all of the data, they might imagine the situations a little bit, which is called hallucination. And there's a specific process called retrieval augmented generation, which was created to ensure that models stick to the information that we want them to stick, and also make sure that they give us answers only on top of the information that we provide. So, for example, even if it was trained on all of the global data, right? We do want to make sure that in our case, it sticks specifically to our industry, specifically to our use case or our company data, and doesn't answer the questions outside of the scope. And in this process, we will utilize things like vector storage, we'll perform similarity search, but most of those things work sort of out of the box. And all you really need is to just link your data to the application. And eventually what will happen is that large language model will stick to the data that's provided by the user and ensure that the quality is good, is that it doesn't steer off outside of it, it doesn't hallucinate, it performs accurate knowledge sharing process, which can happen inside the company. And just as Dominic has explained, imagine those employees coming out of the company, and they all contribute to documentation somewhere in a company, and maybe the handover wasn't good enough, or the process was taking longer, and maybe not all of the newer people who are coming in have been onboarded properly to understand where relevant documents are. Essentially, this system is not only going to provide you a company-wide search on top of all of your data that you have, it's going to provide you answers on top of all of your data. So new employees or older employees can absolutely enjoy using a tool that will provide answers to the questions on top of this corporate knowledge base, to which you had a lot of contributors that are coming and going. It would be a seamless process because it can also synchronize the information over time too.
Actually, I was thinking if like we could go into like how this actually works, how like what's the real difference? Because I think for many people it may be hard to understand like how does it actually use the documents, right? Because we know that the documents are the base of the truth, right? Because you sent me these schematics, I think maybe I would just share them, and that will probably help you out a bit.
I think it will help to explain the structure. So the retrieval augmented generation process, RAG process, it's separated into two things. And the first part is ingesting documents. So this schematic is very, very simple. We try to ensure that it's easy to understand. And sometimes certain parts can be different. Sometimes certain parts are adjustable. But the essence is you have your internal documents, can be your Word documents, can be your Markdown documents, can be your PDF documents, can be your tables, and they just basically go to the embedding model, which is our model that basically tokenizes all of your data. And let's just a little bit of insight. All large language models, they speak to you in our language, but they have a special vocabulary. Different models have different vocabularies, and that vocabulary is basically a word like hi, and it will link to a certain number, to a vector, which will be your embedding. So this way, models are efficient, they encode data quickly. We can create extra words in our vocabulary to ensure that they understand when user is starting to talk, or there's a system system response that happened previously. So embeddings is like translating our data to machine vector space. And after it, we ingest the embeddings into our vector database, and we ingest the same documents. So we ingest them together. And Dominic, if you can show the next slide.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we have the next process is query, is when users start asking questions. Again, user question gets translated into this machine language, and vector database will pull up the document from the vector storage database. And the way vector storage database works, it basically performs what we call a similarity search. So, for example, if you ask what is the, I don't know, how did we close this quarter? What was the performance for this quarter, let's say in terms of growth, something like this, or in terms of issues that happened, the vector search database will simply look up this query in the database. It will search for it. But what's important is if, for example, some users phrased it differently, let's say not issues, but as complaints that happened, it will find it because those words are similar. And we did this embedding part just to ensure that we find similar words around this vector space. So it's quite mathematical, but it ensures that we actually find similar things in our database as similar as possible to the query that's being provided. And finally, we use the output. So we find the relevant documents. So it's like an extremely good search algorithm, right? We find the relevant documents and we feed it to the AI, and then AI uses the documents and in this context window that it has, and it provides the answer to the query that was submitted by the user initially. So this way we ensure that AI will use the documents from our vector storage database and will only use those documents. It will try not to use the data that it has learned previously anywhere else. It will not use the older data. So if, for example, we update our vector storage base with a newer version of a Word document or TXT document, it will just ensure that we are staying up to date and we provide accurate answers to the most recent knowledge that is at the company at the point. So even if, for example, users aren't sure if they want to use it, it's always good to use this tool just to, double check if everything is going well.
Yeah, actually, the thing I read originally about this, sorry if I disrupted you, but I remember reading about this at the very beginning, and I remember reading one comparison which really stuck to my head. And it's actually even the same technology, I believe, used. So like Google search, right? Like Google search Google obviously doesn't have all the info about all the road, right? But they have the search engine, which gives you results. They used to show like 0.2 seconds, right? So that's like that's the first part of what it was showing, right? So it first finds the closest match, and then the magic happens, right? Okay. Sorry if I disturbed you. I just remember that it was a really good comparison, which really stayed in my mind.
Yeah, it's a great comparison because essentially it's two parts. It's a really good search plus optimized large language model that can, ensure it avoids any kind of hallucination. And you can also in this search add things like metadata, ensure that, for example, you have extra fields which specify that this is a financial document, this is a some SOP procedure, this is some other type of internal document. And all of those little things will improve the search so you can grow, right? And I think Dominic just gave you a really great example is that imagine the amount of data that Google has, and it's able to provide search results that are relevant. Same will go for the internal company knowledge is that we will be able to provide really relevant documents here.
That's, I think, really amazing. Like that's what really got me onto that. But I think one big issue with which everybody, I remember this is the first thing which came up 4 or 5 months ago. Everybody was crazy about it, right? What about privacy? How, like, because people have been actually putting up their internal documents to ChatGPT, and like I don't really want to go that way because that was a big issue in the past. I think now people are more knowledgeable, but the big question, I think, and this is something I'm sure Tomek can answer very well, is like how do we make sure that this system is secure, right? How do we make sure that the documents which are like in pharma, it's not like it's hard to understate how important is that those documents stay in house, right, and they are accurate. So I don't know if Tomek, you have a good case for that.
Hey, so yeah, I'm Tomasz from Aproco. So nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Dominique. And regarding the privacy, yeah, it's super important because what we do, for example, is we introduce the AI-based tools and other automation solutions for businesses, and we talk to them and to their employees how they use it. And this is something that's super new and super exciting. It gained popularity like crazy, like nothing else ever. Mm, so even Instagram, Facebook, they just fade away with ChatGPT. And these tools are so useful for the average people, I mean, average users, that they will use it anyway. So what's happening is that they are leaking internal knowledge, internal procedures, or basically confidential company data to those tools. These tools, they learn from the users. So they are retrained based on these questions and answers and the ratings of those. And that poses a serious security threat for a company because mm, there is no way to stop it. People will use it. And what we can do is we can address it upfront and just give them the authorized tools that will be secured. And how can we do it? We can, of course, use tools that are publicly available, but we have to be aware that these data might and most likely will be used sort of publicly. So they might leak, and we should assume that they will leak. There is other way, like you can have a virtual machine for your own, but it's still going to be online. So it's still not airtight system. But there is a third way. You can have even an air-gapped system. So in a basement or in a room, basically, without internet on your local machine. Mm, and based on some, for example, open source system like DocsGPT here from Alex. And there are several advantages to these systems because they can be really tailor-made. What we have to understand about the generally available tools is that they are made for everyone. So if something is for everything, it's not for anything super good. And what we can do with our own system that we will tailor made for our company need or a given even process or department needs is that we can really, really narrow it down to what we need from it. We might want it to be creative or we might want it to be not creative at all. So just every single time the same answer. And when it comes to company data retention, that's pretty much what we want. We want to connect as much data as possible, label them correctly because the quality of the whole tool depends on the quality of the data that we feed it with. And if we label the correct documents, for example, that this is like Alex mentioned earlier, this is an SOP. So this is how we work, our procedures. And this is the regulations. And this is something that we've been discussing about. So we can feed it all in, but label, and then based on the questions and queries from certain users or certain groups of users even, we can get the correct answers. And so far, we've been able to digitalize everything and put all the data, even our meetings, recordings of the meetings, everything online into our company storage. And right now we have this missing layer, which is understanding, sipping through all sorts of data, and then getting the right information that we need at a certain moment out to the users. So via, for example, chat interface.
Yeah,
And
that's a good point, but I think everybody's really interested also in, because this is, I think, the main point where pharma really like pushes us of pressure, right? So you have a very good point about the knowledge. I think this is really the starting point of the unified knowledge space. But like, how do we really make sure that this data, stays in the house? Because I think we are kind of leaving the time where we will be like running local PCs on the manufacturing environment, right? The cloud is a thing and it's not going away. But I think the Aproco demo even is kind of ready to be able to run on your local cloud, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it runs currently on your local cloud. It's not local computer, it's local cloud. So like I mentioned, there are 3 different versions: public, local cloud, and local computer. And this one is running on local cloud. So your own documents, it does have some general knowledge, like all those LLMs, large language models, have, but it is tasked to answer mainly or pretty much only from the documents that they were provided. And thanks to that, we have full control of how it's going to answer. It's not going to come up with creative solutions to different problems that our employees might ask them about. And that gives a company peace of mind that it's going to be repetitive, fully controlled. Another thing is that it's going to be easy to audit for an external company, which is also quite important for certain regulations. And another benefit of open source tools is, for example, the community-driven security. There's always someone who's going to spot something if there are many eyes on it. So this is definitely going to help.
Yeah, I think one thing also, which is a really good point, I think this is what also the EDMS is in the title of this video, right? Is that RAG solutions are really being pushed by the main tech giants of the industry. So we are kind of doing our own take and making it private and trying to make it maybe less process intensive to save costs, but one way or other, these systems will become included in most of the document environments. So there's certain sort of extension to EDMS systems where they can keep their documents safely within their local store, but at the same time use the technology of the AI. That's the big question which is coming up, I think, you know. Yeah, so that's that. I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding it. If you want, as I said earlier, there is a Q&A. We would love to answer any questions you have. If not, we can just go on and answer one of the next big questions, right? Ones which I think is very scary, especially I think many regulatory bodies will confirm that this is something probably they can't sleep because of, is how do you validate this, right? How do you validate answer, which is not the actual answer, right? It's a combination of information, even if the information at the end is the same information as in your document. You know, how do you prove to someone that that's actually correct? No, I don't know if Alex, you have some ideas here.
I think just the level of quality control that you have in general breaks down into a few points. I think the first layer of quality and probably one of the best metrics that you have is simple as user feedback. It's as simple as users leaving thumbs up and thumbs down on your platform. And this way you can ensure that people overall are having good experiences with it. But at the same time, when you are tracking the negative responses, you will also be able to see the users, the people who maintain the platform will be able to see where did it go wrong. They'll be able to investigate it and try to make adjustments. Second layer of quality control is your model. You basically need to make sure you have a good benchmark that benchmarks for your specific purpose, benchmarks for RAG. And the third one is going to be your benchmark for the search, just to ensure that the search algorithm is retrieving the correct data. So as long as you have a good benchmark, a simple benchmark on a model level, on a search level, and on a user level as a whole, you can ensure the quality. And as previously we were discussing, having your own model, because a lot of the times people will rely on companies outside, leak the data outside and things like this. But another big advantage of having your own model on premises is that you will be able to fine tune it. So if you do get the bad responses from bad feedback from users, you can get this bad feedback and then rewrite the answer the way you would have wanted it to be based on the information that was received, and just fine tune the model to ensure that quality keeps going up. So as long as people use it, the quality will always go up.
Yeah, so that's a good answer, I guess. Like, I think there's still a lot of people questioning if we can actually hit the 100% mark. I think for all of our sakes, maybe that will not be true, because if AIs can be 100% correct, then I think we are at risk of losing our jobs. But yeah, we will be having benchmarks, so probably will be some research papers down the line to confirm the accuracy. I don't know, Tomek, you had something to say, right?
Yeah, I think it's like with self-driving cars. In general, technically, the computer has a potential to be 100% correct, or pretty much 100% correct. But there is no human that will always be up to the task, like 100% all the time. So the computer will always be there. It will answer quickly, not within a week or days or hours, but within seconds. And I think quite often being able to ask multiple questions, immediately get the answers, is going to fill the gap between what's currently like maybe 90% accuracy versus 100% of a super specialist. But it's better to get this 90% accuracy answer, I would say, and perhaps know where to dig deeper instead to halt the operations and wait another days for the professional answer that will or might not come. This is something that I would keep in mind.
Sounds good. Actually, like this also taps on the topic of the knowledge cutoff, right? Because the AI's models, the large language models, they have lots of knowledge inside. They have basically everything they stole from the internet, good or bad, right? So I think the demo you did is actually very good at this. Almost annoying that whenever I want to ask something outside of the document, it will tell me it's sorry, but no go, you know. So how did you do that? You know, how do you think we can make sure that the knowledge doesn't like get watered down by the large language model?
So this is an important question because I like to think of the whole chart in a way that it's a new team member that has their own life and their own previous experiences and knowledge, but is being put through some serious training, and they remembered everything of a given company knowledge. And so we have this team member, and he is tasked to answer only from the company training. Of course, he will have some sort of background, right? And they will use their own knowledge to phrase the things in a way that it's going to be relevant. But how we achieved it is mainly through prompt engineering. It might seem quite, well, it is sort of easy to start with because it's simply how you ask the question, but it is crucial, really crucial. And it's the new frontier on how to use these tools is how to correctly ask them questions. And sometimes the questions we ask, the sort of pre-prompt before the user asks questions, then we have like almost a whole page of text that we give them to keep in mind how they should think about the question, how should they answer, what should they keep in mind, what not, what this is basically the whole configuration, like a instruction and training and sort of something that they will remember, they have to remember every single time they answer a question.
Yeah, that's true. Like I've seen it working quite well for you. So how about like document security? Because I believe that's something we haven't really touched on. I know that it's a part of Arc53, right? Because beginning rollout, we are really focusing on regulatory documents, SOPs, that kind of stuff, which really doesn't require that much of a level access, at least for now. But at some point, if we really want this to be a part of a unified knowledge space, then well, documents have access levels, right? And also, you don't really need access to all documents. So how do we create this? So if we have one program, right, one interface, how do we allow different people to access different documents? You know, I don't know, Alex, if you can help me understand that.
Again, I think security in this application comes at many different levels, right? I think the first layer of security is making sure that all of your data stays on your premises, on your secure space. If you're using your AWS and you trust it, you can make sure everything is there. If you use any other provider, you can make sure everything is there and nothing leaves. But in your example, in Dominic's example, it's more about authentication, and it's about assigning roles to people. So as long as we are capable of assigning roles to people and making sure that we understand what kind of documents people have access with certain roles, we can just add the extra layer of metadata to our search algorithm and ensure that we filter out the questions, so that we filter out the documents that you have access to. So it will work just as normal search will do, but different people will experience this search in different ways depending on their access level. So if you have the highest access level, you will get the all of the knowledge possible. But if, let's say, you have more fine-grained access, where you work on one specific topic, one specific thing, it will not help you with answering questions on other topics. It will just help you answer questions on your topic. So this way we can ensure that only people with assigned roles have access to the data that they have access to in general in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, it's also connectable with SAML, with Okta, things like this.
Yeah, I believe that I always think about a bit like categorization, right? Because as we were talking before the webinar, right? If you have thousands of documents, or if actually this goes into processing, right? You have millions of different data. Like, you always have to categorize it. With categorization, there will be always an increase of quality, and also you can do it for security reasons and many other. If you want to, ask for a time limit or whatever. So that's something I think which is really interesting how that will develop. So what about document integrity? Because from what I understand, we have what's the requirements of document integrity? Okay, that's my question. I don't know if Thomas, you can maybe you can answer, like, how good do the documents have to be to actually be used for the system, or can we just drop anything there?
Well, we can drop anything there, but then we cannot expect the whole thing to be awesome, right? So that sort of also tackles the thing, the 100% accuracy that you've mentioned. Of course, the systems are developing, but the brain and the data is only as good as the data. The tool and the answers are only as good as the data that we provide. So in general, we should aim at connecting everything we have to the system and think of it as a company collective brain. And the layer that is processing it and making sense of it is, of course, getting better, and it's a matter of months. So for bigger companies, it's basically immediate how fast it improves. And this is also partially an answer to this 100% question. We will get there very soon, or to almost 100%. But yeah, if we put any data into the brain, the system, or however we call it, then we will have some sort of answers. And we see tremendous difference between even the right question should be asked. So perhaps the same data and slightly rephrased question will provide better results.
Yeah,
but
this also attaches
to
the metadata,
make up the
right?
answer, right? Yes, of course, and labeling the data, which is pretty much it. So yes, this is very, very important. I like to always ask our teams to think together, like, if there is something that someone at some point might use in a company, we should always keep it, like, we by default have everything shared. And at some point, we know we will connect it, and it is obviously already connected. And if we have some sort of even a process or just an internal sort of discipline to label the nodes, to label the documents correctly, name them correctly, that makes tremendous difference for then retrieving it and working with it, because the work needed to start a tool, for example, like the one that we're talking about, is going to be pretty much zero if we have all the data correct, right? So there
Yeah, I
is no
remember
entrance barrier.
this was one of the first issues we had with our tests, right? Is that you had documents which were just like low level, like Q&A, just people talking, and then you would have like guidelines and rule books, and then the AI would really not know. Because the AI doesn't really know if one of them is, a professor and the other one is just someone just, gossiping. It just knows text, right? So that's where the metadata goes in. That's where the categorization goes in. Because in the end, if you want to keep the knowledge in the company, then possibly even gossip can be useful, or like work reports, batch reports. Like the quality of information can be very different. And yeah, sometimes you want to have an answer straight from the rulebook, from the SOP, from the master documents. But sometimes you just want to see like what's been going on here for some time. And in that case, if you have work reports, then they may actually prove useful for that, right? Okay,
Sure.
so
I think there was a question, right, Dominic?
was there? Okay, just a second. Yeah, I think I may have gotten a question privately. That's true. Or did you get a question also privately?
No. I was thinking about your question.
Okay. Well, someone was asking. I think it was Sonia, which was asking, like how do we check? Because like we have all these documents, etc., right? But if we have an answer, how do we check what document, what text was used specifically for that answer?
So this is something that we already tackled with our tools, and the version that is on your website is showing the reference to the document, but it only shows the name of the document. We didn't want to make the interface cluttered, but it can also reply with not only the name of the document, but also the parts of the text that it was taken from. So that answers the question, I think, because you will have the raw data based on which the answer is provided. But yeah, in some cases, it's totally good. For example, some very strict regulations should be tackled this way, because then we have the option, the availability to double check what the AI assistant has provided us with. They are amazing at summarizing things, but perhaps sometimes the wording even will have a crucial difference. So you're able to read through the snippets that it used to create this summarization.
Yeah, I think it actually works for DocsGPT, right? So because there are that snippets of text which it uses to actually create you the answer, right? In DocsGPT, it actually says exactly, it quotes the text, right? I think.
Yeah, I think as Thomas said, it's just a UI issue. I mean, people want it, people don't want it. People want to clutter. They want it in their UI. They don't want it in their UI. Sometimes even maybe it's a good navigational point for them if they want to do more research. Just having a reference and then looking up this file in your files, providing a link to it. So I think it's
Yeah.
just a matter of personal preference. And I think the best way to evaluate all of these processes is probably just to simple user feedback if they're happy or not, and then company will adjust.
Yeah, use the feedback definitely. Although I realize that the snippets kind of can describe how the system works, right? Because when you have the snippets, you kind of get to the point where, oh, okay, so my answer is based on that, right? And it's because many people have the miscomprehension that the system is all knowing, right? So, for example, the model doesn't really know what documents it has. It only knows what the what I call the Google kind of thinking spits out, right? So that the Google actually knows. Because it's got all of that in his database, but the AI doesn't. So the AI does only get the snippets of information and the question, right? So, and it's based on that it gives the answer. So in theory, it's just a good rephraser, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I guess we will move on to the next part, which is fine-tuning on small models. Okay, so this is a whole topic, I guess, moving out into the global arena where there's a whole battle between the giants building AI, which is one for all, and all the small people running AIs on their laptops, where they have like a 7-byte AI, which can run even on their old laptop. And it's supposedly, I actually seen it happen when you fine tune it for a very specific task, it can almost outperform the gigantic models, right? So there's like two futures people predict. I guess it would be a bit of both, where in one case you have thousands of small AIs just, for different tasks, and in the other one you have the big scary one. I don't know what you think about that, Alex.
So the example with smaller and bigger AIs is what we call hierarchical AI systems. It's where basically we have one really, really smart model, maybe orchestrating smaller ones. Those kind of scenarios also will probably exist in future a lot more. But in general, fine-tuning your model is the advantage that you have if you really do deploy in premises. And if you notice that on other platforms, if you want to fine-tune models, the price increases like 10 times, 20, 50 times. And it's because that's where they're trying to gain their markup as well. But if you want to have control, if you want to have true control, right, we can say that, yeah, cost effectively wise, we can deploy a 7 billion token model on premises and ensure you have great quality. It's not the smartest one there, but it really matches most of the competitors, probably one of the best for retrieval augmented generation. But if you want more intelligence, you can simply deploy a bigger model on premises as well. It's going to take up a bit more resources, but at the same time, you will achieve the level of coherence that is achieved by the best models. And I think what's beautiful about open source industry is that it's been catching up so fast with all of the other players. And while other players have been competing heavily on a layer of providing good large language models, the open source people just collected so much data that they tuned or trained the models to a level of quality that is just similar. A good example will be, I think, the Orca dataset is basically when people gathered a lot of good examples from other AIs, essentially, on just simple questions. And then they tuned their own model. And what happened is that their own model was just as good as the previous AI through which they gathered the answers to the questions. And the beautiful thing is that they now can deploy it on their laptops, they can deploy it on their cloud. You can run many tools right now simply from your laptop without using any external providers. And yeah, I think the beauty of it is it just gives you this degree of freedom. And fine-tuning gives you extra degree of freedom of making sure you have good quality responses and you adhere to feedback. And costs, obviously. If you do have good enough critical mass of users, you will save a lot of money. If you deploy on your laptop, the only cost is just like, I don't know, having a program run on your laptop. That's literally what it comes down to.
Yeah, I have GPT running on a virtual machine also, so I've been having lots of fun with it.
There's a good example of per watt efficiency of models. I think some people are starting to talk about it now because what we're noticing is that some companies are a bit inefficient in the way they're using their resources. Maybe they have a lot of money. Maybe they're looking to spend a lot of their customers' money, but it does introduce inefficiencies where they're running very large models when they could run the same thing on a smaller model. And it's really all about having a good process of tuning where you tune your model to the level of quality that you really need it to be.
But it also requires some understanding from the business, on the other hand, to really know what they want to solve with it. I think it's super important as well, because yes, a car for everyone is not going to be awesome for everyone. It's going to be good in general. It's like with these huge models, like Alex mentioned, and the fine tuning to make it super custom for a job is always going to outperform the general one for a given job. But we really have to know as a business, what do we want to solve, why, and who's going to be using it. And this is crucial. So this is something that we as business owners have to work on it, figure it out, and structure the process. Then we can talk and brainstorm how can we use the current new tools to accelerate the growth and get on the fast lane.
Yeah, that sounds great. Like, I'm really interested how that works out, right? Because I think I don't know how far from now, but probably what we will have is, of course, this is depending on which side you are, big or small, but you'll be probably fine-tune models for most companies. So companies at some point may just start doing their own fine-tuned AI, which will kind of grow on the company culture. Like that sounds a bit futuristic, but that's actually kind of like almost what we're talking about, except for the fact that maybe that one will be a bit bigger. Okay, sure. Like we kind of went a bit around, but let's maybe open up on the topic of like platform agnosticism, right? Because I think now it would be very hard to say that anyone has the answers for whatever comes, right? But one thing is sure is that there will be more models coming up in the future. Even like the predictions I've seen from half a year ago, most of them were completely not on point. And even like the materials of AI in the Blink, which I've been posting over the last 3 months, more than half of them are obsolete by now. Like that, everything is changing so fast that I think trying to give like a product right now which actually solves your problems and not being open to adapting it to change is a complete no-go. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think like this modularity is really the way to go.
Yeah, definitely. So the the whole AI part is changing so fast that basically every week there is something new, almost every week. And like you've mentioned, the tools that we worked on for a month ago might become obsolete because there are new possibilities emerging, and it learns so fast. It's basically constantly learning, right, and constantly evolving. And there are teams working around the clock, around the world, on improving it. So we really have to approach it in a way that it's going to develop super fast, much faster than we think, and then probably we are able to adapt to it as a businesses in general, not the tech geeks like we are. So whatever kind of imperfections we see right now, or that we are not satisfied, is 100% sure. I'm 100% sure that it's just a matter of time. I mean months, not years, months at most, and fine tuning and those adjustments that we can make for our use cases. And this is something that we should pass to other business owners or business managers to keep in mind. Another thing I wanted to mention is that this is like a fast lane. The whole AI thing, that I call it a layer, sort of, to talk to our data. And that's a basic use case that we can start very easily with and implement in our companies with little to no work, pretty much. But this is just the very beginning, and it's like at the airport, getting in this huge corridors on this fast lane. There is just no way people without this fast lane are going to keep up with us, right? If we keep the same pace but on a fast lane, we're going to completely outperform the other players. So there's just no choice.
I want to add to what Thomas said. I believe that you always have to look at what's not working yet and work there, because eventually that problem is going to be solved. And if you have enough feedback and understanding, if you communicate well enough with people, you will eventually solve this issue. And when people on a slower lane will start getting there, they will eventually realize that, wow, there is a solution that's been doing it quite well when nobody else was doing it yet.
Yeah, like I totally agree. I think like it's generally worth really starting like let's say the adoption of the AI culture as early as possible, even if we don't really know the answers yet, right? I think it's quite easy to predict that this whole industry will be only growing. It will not be getting smaller anytime soon. Okay, actually, we have a few Q&A questions. So I will start off with Dalton. Will the AI update with the new revisions of documents? So I guess what he means is that do I have to go there manually and do it? Or I don't know. I think there's some syncing going on, right?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on how company want it to be done. If you want to talk with your explicit document, you may have to upload it right manually. But in general, I think the direction we're going is we'll have a few global documents that you can have conversations with, and they will just sync with your source. They will sync, let's say, every day or every few hours, and just update the vector database as soon as the original source is updated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's also
Yeah.
interesting to look at it from the current specialist perspective. So imagine there is new knowledge, new regulations. They have to take some time, probably weeks, to get retrained, to learn the whole thing and analyze it, while the vector database can be updated within minutes, basically, and keep answering the questions correctly according to new regulations and or new documents or new procedures.
Yeah,
And there
sure.
was also a question about the current specialists being scared of the tool that's going to take their jobs. And I think it's nice to look at it that they don't have to do the repetitive things all over again all the time. Like they get asked the same questions so many times, they sometimes get annoyed with it. They will simply be able to do the more interesting things instead of the repetitive things. So anything that is repetitive will always be done better by the AI in general, or but just systems. It's going to be cheaper, more accurate, faster. It's just no way to beat it.
Yeah. And right now, I think that there will be always a person at the end, right? At least for the near future. Like once we have
Human in the loop.
AGI, whatever. Yeah. We still need people. Like this is still maths. This is not real intelligence. Like, and I don't think there'll be any real intelligence anytime soon. But yeah, it's really good at
You're talking months.
streamlining basic tasks. I think we have at least a few more years. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
we
We don't
have.
know.
I don't know, Alex. You had wanted to say something?
Oh, no, that's
Okay,
perfect.
so we have one more question.
I think we have more questions coming.
Yeah, this
Let's
is,
see
I
more.
think, similar to the one before. Like, how do we actually know that? No, this is new. So, how do we know the answer is actually accurate, right? How can we get the list of documents? That's actually a good one. Like, I think you can get the list of documents, but you can't really download them, right? I don't know, Alex, if you can. Oh, Tomasz.
Can we get a list of documents that were used? I think, yeah, it's just like we said in the answer. You will get the reference of the document that was used to create the answer, right? So, like at the bottom, or as a reference, as a number inside your question. Really depends on how the company wants it implemented. But this way, as we said before, people can open it up and see what information was used. And if, for example, a human is a bit concerned, well, where does the model know about this data from? maybe it's going to be a perfect place for a person to click and go and do more in-depth research if they want to. So it will always be a good starting point, even if the question is very complicated. It will have this incredible search algorithm underneath it, and yeah, you will get the list of documents that were used.
Yeah, actually, like because we are getting close to the end, I don't really want to keep everybody sitting around too long, because we will be probably hosting more webinars to go more in depth, because this one I hope wasn't too technical. We were trying not to, but one way or other, like if you are actually more interested in how this works, and then we will be posting also about Arc's homepage or Aproco's demo or AI enabling, so you can do some more research from that side. I'm just saying that before people start dropping out, because I know the 1 hour mark is probably for many people the time that they will be probably doing that.
And if they want to try it out, you can go to No Deviation website and play around with the tool that is installed over there. Maybe Dominic, you can show where it is on the website. I don't know if you have it somehow recorded or just.
Yeah, I have it recorded. I can actually share the screen of the recording going for anyone interested. It's just a snippet, basically. So the first one here is the Aproco. So this is on the ND website, and this is you can access it for free, by the way. So you can just check out how the technology works. So this has been ingested with 255 documents by me. About, like, I downloaded them, Aproco ingested them about a month ago. So they should be at least for a month or two back up to date. And you can actually ask GMP questions of them. So these are for FDA, EU, and PICS. And this was just an example. I wouldn't say we put too much effort into it. Like, the technology behind it obviously is complicated, but actually training it on new document packs or adapting it to a specific use case is actually not that hard. And that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to streamline this process and really cultivate the adoption of this technology. So that's the Aproco, and if you wait a moment longer, there will be the Docs GPT, or was it already?
So I will mention in between that you can find it on nodeviation.com at resources and inspiration. There is the AI assistant where you can click. It's going to ask you for your email, company, etc. That's for us to get in touch in case you would want to get in touch. And then you can play around for free with the regulations. And perhaps it's going to help you on a daily basis already, because the documents are legitimate documents. The whole interface and everything is in beta because it's not a ready-made product. It's a proof of concept more, or test. And but it's still valid and provides valid answers. And feel free to test and rate the answers if they are good or bad in your opinion. Oh, and now we can see the Docs GPT in action.
Yeah. So Docs GPT gives you the power to actually upload your own documents. So I've been playing around with it a lot, and I think no other tool right now on the market, at least of the known ones, provides this functionality. At least not to this extent. Although, as I said, some big tech companies are going at it, but one way or other, if you want privacy and confidentiality, then it's your choice really. But I think open source models which can run on your local server fully under your control is probably the safest option. I know, Alex, you wanted to say something, right?
Just as a closing remark, we've been working with No Deviation, and been receiving a lot of interesting feedback and evolving the product in a direction that they think will benefit everyone. And I think we have to get this feedback to ensure that we really make sure that through No Deviation and together we can serve people and make sure that they do receive the best quality responses. and yeah, just adapt it for the industry essentially, because this kind of workflow is useful in many other industries. But let's say you have a more complicated query, or you want to review the whole document with respect to some other document. That's something we're going to work on together.
So okay, you've touched on some ideas for the future, and I think it's also a nice moment to mention some ideas, because like I said, it's just the entry-level tool, not to diminish its value, but it is sort of the first step for every company that wants to get into that water. But there are already several other ideas that we all are working on and exploring as geeks and technology enthusiasts. And looking at the manufacturing companies, there are certain things like knowledge retention for outgoing employees. So we could have debriefing, and the whole debriefing could even be just recorded and then analyzed through the LLMs and put into the company knowledge base, general knowledge base. And this is going to help tremendously because, for example, someone worked there for 15 years or 10 years, and their knowledge on practical things and how to work with given machines, for example, is invaluable for the new members that are just learning and just, for example, are there for 1 month or 1 year. And this will be super easily accessible by just asking a question on your smartphone to all the other employees. Also, it's important to note that it's just no going back from it. So if you like it or not, there is just no going back. And it's worth to start creating the so-called AI culture and in general tell people around about it so that they are not scared, not afraid, because it's going to help them tremendously.
Okay, so I don't know if you have some more remarks for the end. I think this is it for the first webinar. If you liked it, I would love some feedback from you guys. We will maybe hosting more of these and putting them up on YouTube. So I hope we can kind of push the word out there, because even if we will not necessarily be the ones, developing this, one way or other, the word is going that way. So I think it's worth really, putting the word out and making people kind of prepare for it. Yes, I don't know if you have anything more to say.
Sure. As Aproco, I wanted to offer everyone who wants to just brainstorm the ideas on how can they use it in their use case. We offer free consultations with specialists on how they might use it or might not be relevant for their use case. So just don't be afraid. Go on our aproco.io website, and you can schedule a meeting in a calendar or just send us a message, and we will be happy to help out and answer the questions. And don't worry, whatever kind of questions. So no stress about it.
Alex, you want to say anything more, or we could be closing out?
Yeah, it's been nice attending this live stream. It's been nice chatting with everyone. I think, yeah, if anyone wants to ask questions, I'm free to answer as well. But yeah, genuinely, I think Thomas will be able to provide a bit more.
Actually, we did get a question. I think this is the last one before we will be closing, right? Okay. What is the approach to structuring data from documents? In an example, having a scanned document, for example, an invoice as input and structured data as output. I think both of you have your own approaches for this. So actually, it's a good one. So I don't know which one.
I think if you have OCR in your system, like scanning a document, it's a bit more of a complicated pipeline. You really have to nail that ACR well. But in case it's something like a invoice, just a simple PDF, then you have a good ingestion algorithm. You can adjust it. I think we worked on a lot of different formats, a lot of different documents, and sometimes you have your golden middle that sort of fits all of the purposes. But let's say, yes, your example is invoice is very good. There will be a lot of repetitive data which will be unnecessary for algorithm, and you will want to cut it out in the best world. So in this case, it's good to tag the document that this is, for example, an invoice, and you can send it to a separate ingestion pipeline where you ensure that only the useful data remains.
Yeah, and actually invoices is an interesting part because we have a system that's processing the documents, and we're working with lawyers and other businesses because one thing is to process invoices, and other thing is to process even the court or government documents and make sense of them at first, because sometimes they like 20, 30 pages, and we summarize them in 3 sentences for them to quickly understand and know how to process the document. But tackling the invoices, yes, it took several months for us to adjust the prompt, for example, to be able to correctly extract the data from all sorts of documents, from different countries, different formats, even if it's an invoice or a receipt. It is possible, and now, especially now that since a week and a day, there is this more JSON-focused version of GPT-4 Turbo, which can be, well, because it was a problem at the beginning to force it to reply always in the same, like invoice ID, invoice date, invoice amount, etc. Sometimes it was getting a little creative. Right now, it's much more controllable and much more efficient to process the data.
That's a good answer. Actually, I could see Thomas just smiling because I know you've been working on that for a few months for exactly that kind of thing. So since there are no more questions, I think this is a wrap. I'm happy you guys came here. It's been really nice working with you, and yeah, thank you for participating in this open talk. Let's see where it goes further, right?
Thanks a lot, Dominic. We're looking forward to some new challenges to tackle together.
Sure. So thanks for anyone visiting, and see you guys next time.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.